In this chapter, we will discuss how to use structural firefighter PPE safely in dangerous fireground conditions. The important points we will cover are limitations of your gear, types of heat exposures, how burns can occur, operational tactics to help avoid burns, the problem of stored energy, and the dangers of moisture in your PPE. Fires are inherently dangerous and unpredictable environments. Temperatures can climb to more than 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit in a matter of seconds. To maximize your protection, you must understand these conditions and the limited ability of your turnouts to protect you from the hazards they present. There are three types of heat transfer in a fire that could cause burns: conduction, convection, and thermal radiation.
As far as the three different types of heat, the first is conduction. Conduction is when two bodies are brought together and are physically touching. Heat is transferred between the two bodies due to that touch. The second type of heat is convection. Heat is transferred through the air to the other body and is something that we would typically see in a fire condition because of the superheated gases in the fire. The last is radiation. Radiation is electromagnetic transfer of heat, and that transfer of heat is through the air, but does not require an air movement at all. The most common is when a firefighter feels heat on the side of their face, for example, from a fire, and that there's no air movement, the air is still cool, but yet you feel heat because of a fire at a distance. That's a radiation type heat transfer.
Conductive, convective, or radiant heat can penetrate quickly into your PPE. Dangerous levels of heat may be present inside or outside a structure despite the lack of flames, and burns can occur at relatively low temperatures. If you feel burns developing, escape to a cool, safe place immediately and remove your PPE. You may be burned without any warning signals or sustaining any damage to your PPE. You may have very little or no warning time from feeling heat or pain before your skin begins to burn. Burns are a function of time and temperature. The higher the temperature of the heat source and the longer the exposure time, the greater the severity of burns. First-degree burns begin when the temperature of skin reaches approximately 118 degrees Fahrenheit. Second-degree burns occur when the skin reaches approximately 131 degrees Fahrenheit. Third-degree burns occur when skin temperature reaches approximately 152 degrees Fahrenheit. Even small fires can generate several times the level of heat to cause severe burns if you do not wear all your protective ensemble in a secure manner.
Your PPE is not designed to protect you from all environments or all circumstances. Therefore, you really need to monitor how you are feeling and what you are experiencing as you are exposed to that environment. If you start to feel tingling, if you start to feel heat buildup, change your position, change your environment, or leave the situation. One example might be stored energy. Over time, you may be faced with a low heat level over a long duration. Over that period of time, the layers in your PPE are absorbing heat and increasing in temperature. And should you lean up against the wall or have wet PPE, that stored energy can then turn into a burn injury that you don't expect due to heat buildup and compression.
If you are the nozzle man on the hose line, you may need to alert your officer and change positions on the hose line or exit a heated environment to allow your garments to cool down. Prolonged or repeated exposures to heat will increase PPE temperatures and can cause burns even after you're no longer exposed to high temperatures. Avoid entering a fully engulfed environment, such as a room filled with flames, without first attempting to knock down the fire and cool the floor. Minimize exposure to heat by using water to cool the environment or by escaping quickly after a short period of time. Failure to follow these instructions can result in burns beneath your garment. The buildup of heat in NFPA 1971 compliant PPE can lead to burns without any sign of damage to the garment. Never wait for signs of garment damage to warn of imminent burns. Remember, PPE only provides limited protection, and depending on how extreme the fire conditions are and how close to the flame front you are situated, this protection could only last a matter of seconds.
If you go to emergency conditions, if you go to a flashover condition, the chances are that you are going to be burned, and maybe even burned badly.
Exposure to flashover, backdraft, or other flame and high heat environments places you at extreme risk for extensive burn injuries and death, even while wearing your NFPA 1971 compliant structural ensemble. Your protective ensemble only gives you a few seconds of escape time in these emergency conditions, and even with this escape time, you may still be burned.
If you've been exposed or your PPE has been exposed to an extreme exposure, it has reduced its protective capabilities from when it was new. And don't be surprised if you have to retire your gear because of that extreme exposure. Anytime any element of your PPE is involved in an extreme exposure, you should always have an advanced inspection conducted on that element of PPE prior to returning it to service. Sometimes you can't see damage on the outside where there may be damage on the inside. An advanced inspection will give you the benefit of knowing that you still have that protection again and again and again.
You know, compression burns can happen anytime you're advancing a hose line into a building. When you squeeze together the layers of your gear, it collapses the air pockets that provide insulation. Compression burns can happen at any time the gear is compressed, and it may burn you without any warning. The New York City Fire Department has developed a program to help minimize compression burns when advancing a hose line into a building. It consists of a number of steps. The first step is sweep and switch. That means you sweep the floor with a hose line. This pushes debris to the side, and it also reduces the surface temperature. Switching from knee to knee as you advance the hose line also reduces prolonged contact with the heated surfaces. Squat if you can. By squatting, the turnout gear comes up off the floor and it's not subject to compression burns. And shift. By shifting your weight from side to side, if you have to be on your knees, you're going to reduce the time that the knees are in contact with a hot surface, therefore reducing the probability that you may get compression burns in your gear.
Squatting for too long while exposed to radiant or convective heat can also cause reduction of insulation. As you squat, you compress your turnout pants against your knee and leg. If your protective clothing is hot, it can contribute to burn injury. Other areas especially subject to compression burns include shoulders and arms, typically when sleeves are pulled tight while holding hose lines, and areas underneath and adjacent to SCBA straps. Always check to make sure that the thermal liner in your pants is not cinched up your leg and thereby creating a dangerous exposure. Smoke debris and hot gases may enter through the cuffs in your pants while standing or kneeling during firefighting operations. You should constantly be aware of this hazard if you try to walk over any burning objects or hot surfaces. Water is your best friend when you're knocking down flames, but it becomes a threatening enemy inside your protective envelope. Water transfers heat with dangerous and totally unpredictable speed. When water is absorbed into your thermal barrier, it can displace the insulating air. Water provides a conductive bond between you and surfaces that might not otherwise touch. If you have been sweating heavily during a fire, some of this sweat could be absorbed into your PPE, station wear, or underwear, and could reduce the thermal insulation provided by your protective clothing. Therefore, you need to be very careful about minimizing compression when your PPE is wet. Always dry your turnouts between runs. Never wear wet or damp protective clothing into a hazardous area.